On a sunny afternoon in 2001, three little girls vanished from a Tennessee church barbecue, leaving no trace but a single pink sandal. 17 years later, one returns with a chilling tale of a dark room, whispered choices, and sisters lost forever. Who took them? Why was she spared? Unravel the eerie truth in this gripping mystery. This story's fiction, crafted from real-life cases for education and entertainment. Hit that like button, subscribe, comment your theories, and share this video to keep the conversation alive. Don't miss the shocking twist, stick around till the end. It was a sweltering Sunday afternoon, in the summer of 2001 in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a sleepy little town tucked about 50 miles south of Nashville, where folks still waved from their porches and knew each other's secrets, or thought they did. Behind Holy Cross Church, the annual summer barbecue was in full swing. Smoke from the grills curled up lazy into the blue sky, carrying the scent of ribs and coleslaw. Kids darted around barefoot on the grass, laughing and hollering, while parents chatted over sweet tea and potato salad. For the Hargrove family, it was supposed to be one of those perfect days. Laura Hargrove, a soft-spoken schoolteacher with a smile that lit up the room, had brought her 3 7-year-old triplet daughters, Sophia, Mia, and Ava. They were inseparable. Little whirlwinds in matching yellow sundresses with bright red ribbons tied in their ponytails. Sophia, the quiet one, always hung back a step while Mia and Ava chased each other, giggling like mad. Near the edge of the picnic area, where the grass met a thick line of shadowy woods, the girls were playing a game of tag, butterflies flitting around them like tiny ghosts. Sophia reached out to grab a monarch, when suddenly the laughter stopped. Laura was helping set up the dessert table, turning away for just a heartbeat to grab a pie from the cooler. When she glanced back, the clearing was empty. Sophia, Mia, Ava. She called at first casual, like they might be hiding behind a tree, but no answer. Came just the eerie rustle of leaves in the breeze. Her heart started pounding, a cold chill snaking down her spine. Despite the heat, Mike, she shouted to her husband Michael Hargrove, a sturdy mechanic with grease-stained hands, who was flipping burgers at the grill. They were right here playing by the trees. Michael dropped the spatula and jogged over his face, twisting from confusion to alarm. "Girls, come on out. This ain't funny," he bellowed, peering into the darkening woods that stretched out for miles. But silence swallowed his words like a hungry beast. Other parents started noticing the panic in Laura's voice, rising sharp and desperate. "Has anyone seen my girls?" Emma from down the street chimed in. "They were chasing butterflies just a minute ago, weren't they?" But no. One had seen them wander off. No footprints marked the soft earth. No broken branches hinted at a struggle. No discarded ribbons lay forgotten. It was as if the earth had opened up and snatched them whole. By 3:15 that afternoon, picnic turned into chaos. Someone dialed 911, their voice trembling. 3 little girls missing from the church barbecue. No signs, no nothing. The Oak Ridge police rolled up in their cruisers, sirens wailing low, like a mournful cry. Volunteers formed lines, sweeping through the woods, flashlights cutting through the gathering dusk, even as helicopters thrummed overhead, their thermal cameras scanning the treetops for any heat signatures. But nothing. No clues, no whispers from the wind. Just an empty spot where joy had vanished. Laura stood there clutching. Mia stuffed bare her knees, buckling as tears streamed down. Mike held her, whispering, "Well, find 'em, honey. They can't have gone far." But deep down, a shadowy dread lurked, twisting like vines in those woods. Rumors started bubbling up quick as kudzu. Why didn't Laura keep a closer eye? Folks murmured about that heated argument Michael had with a neighbor last week, over a fence line. Could he have something to do with it? The questions hung heavy, unanswered as night fell, blanketing Oak Ridge in a suffocating quiet days, blurred into weeks, the search parties thinning out, flyers with the girls' smiling faces, plastered every mailbox and telephone pole from here to Knoxville. But tips led nowhere. No ransom calls, no suspicious vans caught on the few traffic cams in town. The FBI stepped in, labeling it an abduction with unknown motives, Yet with zero evidence, the case went cold, like a forgotten fire. Laura refused to let go. Every year on that cursed date she held a candlelight vigil outside Holy Cross, the flames flickering like fragile hopes. She kept their room untouched, beds made with crisp sheets, dolls lined up neat on the shelves, whispering to empty air, "I know you're out there somewhere." The town tried to heal, but trust cracked like dry earth. Parents clutched their kids tighter at church events, the woods fenced off as if to cage the unknown. For 17 long years, the wound festered, and then one crisp March morning in 2018, a young woman walked into a police station in Indianapolis, Indiana, about 300 miles north. No ID, no backstory, just a faded photo clutched in her hand, and a hollow look in her eyes that screamed secrets, long buried. "I think, in one of those missing triplets," she said, her voice steady, but edged with something chilling. The DNA test came back an exact match. The world held its breath. But what she revealed next would unravel everything, in ways no one could have imagined. The search dragged on like a nightmare. That wouldn't end. Folks in Oak Ridge combed those woods for miles, calling out the girls' names, until their voices went hoarse. Laura Hargrove barely slept, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, clutching that pink sandal they'd found half buried in the dirt near the tree line. It matched the ones the triplets had been wearing, but how it got there alone was a chilling mystery. Michael paced the house, muttering prayers under his breath, while the town buzzed with whispers. By the end of the first week, the FBI had rolled in with their suits and clipboards, turning the church grounds into a command center. Jack Donovan, the local detective, a grizzled guy in his 40s, with a mustache that hid his perpetual frown, took the lead. He pulled Laura aside in the Hargrove living room, the air thick with coffee and desperation. "Mrs. Hargrove," he said, his voice gravelly like, "Had smoked too many packs. Tell me again about that afternoon. Did you notice anyone strange hanging around the barbecue?" Laura shook her head, tears welling up. "No, Jack. Everyone there was from town, folks we've known forever." But her mind raced back to a fleeting shadow. A woman in a plain dress, lingering near the nursery building, before the picnic. Could it have been someone? But she pushed it away, too exhausted to think. Michael jumped in, defensive. "What are you implying, Donovan? That we had something to do with this? Our girls are gone and you're grilling us like criminals." Jack leaned back, not unkindly, just following leads. "Mike, rumors are flying about that fight you had with old man Thompson last week. Over the property line," he said. "You threatened him." Michael's face flushed. "That's bull," I yelled. "Sure, but I'd never hurt my kids." The questions kept coming, twisting like knives. Weeks turned into months. The hotline rang with false hopes. One tip about a white van spotted 10 miles out led to a dead end. Another from a psychic, claiming visions of water, but searches of nearby creeks turned up zilch. Flyers yellowed on bulletin boards, from Memphis to Chattanooga. The girls' faces fading in the sun like ghosts. The media swarmed at first, helicopters chopping the air above. Oak Ridge reporters shoving mics in Laura's face. "How does it feel, knowing they might be out there?" she pleaded on camera, her voice cracking. "If you have my babies, please bring him home." But as tips dried up, the tone shifted. Whispers grew louder. Why was Michael so calm at the vigil? Folks said he didn't even cry. And Laura, why didn't she watch him closer? Some even hinted at insurance scams or worse. The Hargroves' house became a prison of suspicion, neighbors avoiding eye contact at the grocery store. Jack Donovan dug deeper, pulling bank records and alibis, but found nothing solid. Still, he couldn't shake the eerie feeling that someone in town knew more. A former church volunteer, a kid named Tommy, recalled seeing a strange lady in disguise near the woods that day. She had a weird smile, he said in a hushed interview, but vanished quick, like smoke. The FBI classified it abduction, unknown motives, but with no ransom, no witnesses. The case iced over. Laura hosted those vigils every June, candles flickering in the humid Tennessee night. "I won't forget," she vowed to the dwindling crowd. They're alive somewhere. 17 years. Crawled by Oak Ridge, changed new fences around the woods. The barbecue canceled forever. Trust shattered, like glass. Parents eyed strangers at Holy Cross services, whispering about hidden dangers. Laura aged, her hair graying, but her resolve, steel. She gardened to distract herself, watering roses, while staring at the tree line waiting. And then in March of 2018, the phone rang, shattering the silence. "Mrs. Hargrove," a voice said from Indianapolis. "We've got a young woman here. No ID, but she claims she's one of your girls' DNA confirms it." Laura's world spun, but joy mixed with dread. What horrors had she endured, and where were the others? The phone call hit Laura like a bolt from a clear Tennessee sky. She dropped the hose in her garden, water pooling at her feet. As the officer's words echoed, Emma found alive. But it wasn't Emma anymore. It was Sophia, her quiet one back from the void. After 17 years, Laura was on the next flight to Indianapolis, 300 miles north, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest the whole way. Mike had passed in a car wreck years back, so she went alone, clutching a faded photo of the triplets. By the time she landed, nerves raw as exposed wire, she was escorted straight to the station. There, sitting in a sterile room, under buzzing fluorescent lights, was a young woman 24 years old. Now, with eyes that mirrored Laura's own deep blue and haunted Sophia, the woman said, her voice hollow like wind through an empty barn, "I don't remember y'all much, but this old picture I found, it feels like a ghost, whispering secrets." Laura froze, tears blurring her vision, then rushed forward, arms open. "You're home, baby. You're finally home." Sophia hesitated, her hand trembling as she took Laura's. But no tears came, just a fragile silence that spoke volumes. Over the next hours, the story unraveled in fits and starts. DNA results flashed on the screen. An exact match. No doubt, the cops in Indianapolis had run it routine for a walk-in with no ID. Now the world was tilting. Sophia explained how she'd grown up in a remote farmhouse in rural Kentucky, 50 miles from the nearest town, raised by a strict woman. She called Evelyn strict, but not mean, distant like a shadow. "That never warmed. Evelyn homeschooled me," said, staring at the floor. "Rarely let me out. No friends, no television, just books and chores. She told me from when I was little that my real mom died of a heart attack, and I had no siblings. Whenever I asked more, she'd shut down, say some things are best left buried." Laura listened, her chest tightening like a vice. "But how did you find out?" Sophia pulled out the faded photo. 3 identical girls in sundresses. Hargrove scrawled in the corner. "I found this in Evelyn's attic after she died last year from cancer." My chest went tight, like I'd seen it in a dream. I started searching online, hit a cold case site, and there I was, missing from Oak Ridge. The news exploded like wildfire. Reporters swarmed the station. Missing triplet returns after 17 years, but joy curdled, quickened to confusion. Sophia didn't remember the barbecue, the woods, or her sisters. Flashes came in dreams, though bare feet on damp grass, hands pulling her into darkness. Laughter turning to cries in therapy sessions. Back in Oak Ridge, under watchful eyes of shrinks, Sophia began to crack open. She sat with Laura one stormy night, rain lashing the windows. I remember a dark room, no windows, just a flickering bulb. We were all there at first, me, Mia, Ava crying, huddled on thin mattresses. Evelyn's voice through the door. "Good girls don't make noise. Good girls might go home someday." But they didn't. One day Mia was taking, her hand slipping from mine. Then Ava. A week later, I screamed for days. Evelyn came back, said, "You're the quiet one, the good one, who didn't fight. That's why you stayed." Laura's world shattered. The horror wasn't just the taking, it was the choosing. Sophia survived because she was silent. But the others, the question hung like a noose, choking the air. Who was Evelyn really? And what monster had orchestrated this nightmare? The question, who was Evelyn, really gnawed at Laura like a thorn buried deep, Jack Donovan, the detective Wood, led the original search, 17 years back, showed up at the Hargrove door, one rainy afternoon, his mustache grayer now, but his eyes, still sharp as tacks. "Laura, we need to talk," he said, stepping inside, water dripping from his coat. "I've been digging since Sophia came back. This ain't random. Evelyn Ellis, that's her full name, worked as a temp aide in the Holy Cross nursery. Week before the barbecue, she had access to the kids, the layout, everything." Laura's breath caught like ice in her throat. "You mean she was inside the church?" Jack nodded grimly, pulling out faded records. "Yeah, and get this, she wasn't local, came from Kentucky, claimed experience with children, but her references were phony. As a $3 bill, we traced her old farmhouse 50 miles out in the hills, abandoned now, but blueprints from county files show a cellar space sealed up around 2007. Sophia's eyes widened from the couch, where she sat wrapped in a blanket. "That's the room I remember. Cold, no light, just crumbling walls, and that bulb flickering like it was dying." Jack leaned in. "We tore up the floors yesterday. Found this." He slid a photo across the table, a pink sandal, faded and torn. "Forensics matched it to what y'all described the girls wearing that day. No blood, no bones, but it proves you ain't imagining things," Sophia whispered. "The quiet one, that's what she called me." Laura gripped her daughter's hand tighter. "But why, Jack? Why take 3 and keep 1? The money trail." Jack said, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "We pulled Evelyn's banks. A deposit of $10,000 hit her account July 2001, right after the girls vanished. From a defunct LLC in New Jersey shell company, no real ties, but it screams payoff, and smaller sums 3 to 5,000 trickled in regular for over a decade, like someone was buying her silence." Sophia bolted upright. "I remember voices now, arguing through the door. Too many mouths to feed, one is enough. Get rid of the problem. Evelyn." And a man, deep voice, like gravel. Laura felt dread coil in her gut. "Who, Jack?" "We got a lead. He produced an old photo from 2000, Evelyn at a church event in Oak Ridge. In the background, Thomas Whitaker, deacon at Holy Cross. Back then, clipboard in hand, looking right at her phone records show dozens of calls between EM around the abduction, moved to Florida in 2003, vanished from sight. Till now." Sophia's mind raced, flashes hitting her like lightning. "The man," he whispered. "You're lucky. Chosen." The phrase echoed like a curse. "We need to check that farmhouse," Laura said, standing. "Sophia, you're not going alone." But Sophia insisted. "Mom, I have to remember." They drove to Kentucky the next night, sneaking onto the property under cover of darkness. Flashlights cut through the eerie gloom as they pried open the cellar door. The space matched crumbling concrete, rusted pipes, but in the far wall, a hidden panel gave way to a narrow tunnel snaking deeper. "What's that?" Sophia whispered, freezing. A low humming, like an old organ hymn, echoing from the dark. The low humming swelled like a sinister heartbeat, echoing through the narrow tunnel beneath Evelyn's old farmhouse in Kentucky. Sophia froze, her flashlight beam trembling on the damp walls. Laura whispered, harsh and urgent. "What is that?" "Sounds like an organ hymn from some forgotten church." They pushed forward, shadows clutching at their throats, the air thick with musty decay and secrets long buried. The tunnel twisted for what felt like 100 feet before opening into a hidden chamber, lit by a single bare bulb, papers scattered across a rickety table, blueprints of Holy Cross Church marked with red X's, and notes scribbled in frantic handwriting. Chosen ones, quiet survivors. "This wasn't just a kidnapping," Jack Donovan said, joining them. Later, his voice a gravelly rumble after they called him in. "This looks like a network, a twisted religious group, maybe tied to the church, buoying kids off to rich families who couldn't have their own. Evelyn wasn't alone. Thomas Whitaker paid to erase problems. That's on the twist. He wasn't just a deacon. He orchestrated it to cover scandals in Oak Ridge." Back at the station, the revelations hit like thunderclaps. Facial recognition software, Scanned old yearbooks and social media from across states flagging possible matches for Mia and Ava grown up. One tip from West Virginia, 2003 described, two scared girls led into a barn by a couple eyes like the Hargrove triplets, but silent as graves. No confirmation yet, but it unraveled. Threads, like frayed ropes. Pulling them deeper, Sophia woke screaming that night. Sweat soaking her sheets. I heard them crying through the walls. She gasped to Laura, Mia and Ava begging not to be taken. The dream sharpened, leading her to demand a trip to Florida, where Thomas Whitaker holed up in a retirement community, frail and legally blind, but sly as a fox in his wheelchair. Mr. Whitaker, Sophia said, leaning close, her voice steel. We know about the calls, the money, the tunnel. What did you do with my sisters? He chuckled low, and, chilling, church had nothing to do with it, girl. Or did it? The group, they believed in purification. Quiet ones. Like you were saved. The criers. Problems to be erased. But no. Confession, just riddles that twisted the knife deeper. Back home, an anonymous letter arrived. Postmarked from New Mexico. Shaky script warning. The quiet one was the mistake. Stop digging, or you'll join the others. Jack analyzed it. No prints, no DNA, but authentic as a grave marker. Then the biggest twist, a late night call to the hotline. This is Mia, a whispery voice said, help me please. But the line went dead. Static hissing like a threat. Laura clutched the phone, her face pale as death. Is it real, Sophia, or a trap to silence us forever? The questions loomed heavier than ever, the shadows closing in, like hungry wolves. The questions loomed heavier than ever, the shadows closing in like hungry wolves. Laura and Sophia sat on the front porch of their Oak Ridge home, the Tennessee night, air thick with cricket chirps and unspoken fears. Laura lit a candle in the window, its flame flickering like a beacon in the dark. I've kept this light on every night since you came home, she said, her voice soft but steady, for you and your sisters. Somewhere out there they might see it, and remember. Sophia nodded, her hand resting on her mother's. We'll find 'em. Mom's silence ain't protection anymore. It's what kept me buried for so long. The investigation sputtered like a dying engine, with Evelyn dead, Thomas Whitaker too frail to charge, and no bodies. The case stayed open but dormant like a grave without a stone. Prosecutors had no one to nail the shell. Companies dissolved like mist in the morning sun. Jack Donovan promised to keep digging, but even he admitted, the trail's gone cold, folks. We chased every lead from that West Virginia barn to the New Mexico letter. Nothing stuck. Sophia threw herself into work at a local advocacy center in Oak Ridge, helping families navigate the maze of missing kids. She spoke at seminars, her voice steady. Now I was stolen, she told crowds, and so were my sisters. But the world only looked when I came back. If you know something, speak up. Silence buries us. One evening, sorting through old boxes in the attic, Sophia found a hidden letter tucked in Evelyn's Bible. Handwriting shaky. The he is closer than you think. Church shadow hides the truth. Her blood ran cold. Was there another player, someone in Holy Cross pulling strings? Even now she showed it to Laura, who whispered, we can't stop now, baby. Not till every secret's dragged on into the light. The town moved on, cautious and scarred. Holy Cross changed. Leaders issued denials, but whispers lingered about dark corners and forgotten scandals. Parents watched their kids like hawks the woods, a forbidden zone. Now Laura, in her early 60s, kept the girls' rooms unchanged, beds made with fresh linens, gifts wrapped each birthday on the dresser. Sophia studied psychology at community college, aiming to heal others like she'd been healed, but nightmares still clawed at her, waking with cries that echoed from that basement. Therapy helped piecing together fragments, but the gaps haunted her. Why me, she asked her. Shrink. One session. The expert, an FBI psychologist, leaned forward. Cases like yours show trauma, buries memories deep. But therapy uncovers truths. About 70% of abduction survivors repress details to cope. It's your mind's shield, but breaking it sets you free. The lesson hit hard. In real life, silent shields. The guilty report tips quick. Every second counts a life. In America, thousands of kids vanish yearly. Don't let churches or communities hide shadows. Vigilance saves lives. Rebecca once said, "The story ain't over till every candle's lit." And so they waited faithfully and knock at the door, a familiar face in. The crowd hoped, cruel but unbreakable. Because what if one day, after all this time, the silence finally broke,